Go.
It was about 30 years ago. Billy was hiding out in an abandoned farm near Stinking Springs. I threw in with the kid because the man I had sworn vengeance on was riding with Billy's enemies. But before I tell you why I want that son of a bitch dead, let me tell you what happened that day. I was heading back to the hideout when suddenly I had this funny feeling.
Funny, ha-ha?
No, Steve. The other kind of funny.
Was it Pat Garrett's posse?
Oh, yeah. I heard the shots and I knew I had to move fast. Garrett and his army of deputies had surrounded the entire homestead. I decided to help Billy and the boys out a bit. So that's just what I did. Still, one of them reached the water tower. Not a bad idea. Then, I heard a friendly voice yelling at me from the window. Back door! We'll cover you! Truth be told, things weren't much better behind the house. It was a bit of a slog, but I finally fought my way around the back of the house. And like that, I was inside. None the worse for wear. Billy looked at me and said, "About time, amigo. Grab a gun and get to the window."
Wait, so you were friends with Billy the Kid?
Yeah, sort of. Anyway, we were surrounded by dozens of deputized shooters who wanted to do us harm. I'm telling you, Garrett's men were dropping like flies, but they just kept on coming. That's when Charlie got hit. "They're catching us in a crossfire," shouted Billy. "Get to the other side." I don't know how many of those cocksuckers I personally put down, but it was pretty clear, even to Billy, that maybe discretion was the better part of valor. What's that mean? It means that it was time to cut and run. "They got a Gatling," Billy shouted. "Get the horses and bring them round back. I'll draw their attention."
If this is world record in blood funded
He directed that order at me, and I thought, why the hell do I have to do it?
the soft
Many
lock
would
is
have fled
caused
in my
by
place.
you being too close to the door
and just when I
when
thought
the
I
guy
was
enters.
done with them,
You're not
more of these
supposed to
hapless bastards would
move
pop
to the
up.
window.
Finally, I had the stables
Breaks
within
in.
my reach. And that's when I met Sheriff Pat Garrett.
I read that you went toe-to-toe with him, sir. That backstabbing bastard with that tacked-on tin star. You challenged him to a showdown.
You read that in a dime novel?
It said he showed no fear as he took your measure with eyes like a rattlesnake. And that you killed him
Oh, well.
in a fair fight.
Is that what that Penny Dreadful said? No, boy. That ain't what I meant when I said I met Pat Garrett. So let me start again. I finally reached those damn stables.
Okay, and be a -11 seconds.
And stepped inside, and last thing I heard was Garrett's voice. That's not Billy.
And go on. How did it end?
And, boy, that was just the beginning.
Yeah, -11.
So what happened?
It's important to know that I was only riding with Billy so I could find the bastard I was after.
Alright, we sit around and we wait for...
He was with
Us to be
John
able to do
Kinney's
anything.
gang, and they were sworn enemies of Billy's regulators.
Why were you after him?
I owed that son of a bitch a bullet for what he had done to me and mine. Instead, all I got for myself was a goddamn death sentence. Luckily, it was right around then that I heard Billy make his move. He shot Jim Bell and a few other guards as he made his getaway. Later, they wrote that some lady friend planted a pistol for him in the privy. What the papers didn't say is that Billy helped me escape, too. My first order of business was finding a firearm. Luckily, I located Deputy Bob Ollinger's mean-ass
Got there
shotgun.
before the line of dialogue for firearm was released. Looks like he's got no time wasted.
I saw Billy through the window, and he yelled that I should take to the rooftops to make my escape. So I did. Hell yeah. That scatter gun was like a double-barreled howitzer. It could blow a man clear off his feet. You hardly had to aim the damn thing. Guards were everywhere looking for it.
Oh,
I had to jump from roof to roof like a damn alley cat. I followed the planks where I could, but some of that wood was slippery as hell.
So that bastard you were after, what did he do?
He did me and my family a grievous harm. But I knew if I was ever gonna find him, I would need to get my ever-loving ass out of there. I tried to be stealthy and sneak my way past. But hell, if they weren't all waiting for me. Apparently, some of them thought I was Billy. See, me and the kid shared a certain similarity in
probably
build and color. I was just glad I had Deputy Bob's mean-ass shotgun. So much lead was whizzing by my head, it was like everyone in Lincoln wanted to put me in the ground. I knew I needed... I'm invincible.
that skips a hell of a lot of dialogue. Further down before you do it.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. The stables on the edge of town.
I guess Billy saved your ass, taking out Bob Ollinger the way he did.
Billy didn't kill Bob.
Well, sure he did. He dispatched him right after he shot Deputy Bell.
No, sir. Because Bob came right up behind me, angry as hell that Billy had lit out. "Hello, Bob," I said. "I think you better let me go." And he says, "I don't think so, boy. Not with my shotgun." So we stood there in the middle of the street, eyeball to eyeball. He intended to kill me, and I knew I had no choice but to defend myself. Some say I fought unfairly. But they weren't the ones looking him in the eye that day.
So where'd you go after Lincoln?
Mexico.
So was the bastard you were after now riding with the cowboys?
Roscoe Bob Bryant was his name.
Oh.
But no, this time it was a different bastard I was after. The aforementioned Mr. Ringo. I came upon them robbing a stagecoach, which wasn't surprising, being they were such murderous thieves and bastards. The bandits wore red scarves, so I knew they worked for the old man. Over there! There! I did my best to help those poor bastards.
Oh my God.
Moments later, the attackers were dead. And I checked the stagecoach to see how many
This
passengers
mission
were
will be
still
a time
breathing.
loss because I had a perfect old man Clanton fight.
It was then I wondered if the rocks weren't
Ideas.
hiding more bandits. Was that all of them? Or did I just hit the rear guard? I quickly got my answer. They attacked from on high like Apaches often do. They would appear in great numbers from above and rain down lead on their hapless enemies' heads, making use of the high ground and whatever else they had. Yep, the Apaches always appeared out of nowhere, and there never seemed to be an end to them.
Hold on. Were you attacked by Apaches? What happened to the cowboys?
Did I say they were Apaches? I said Clanton's cowboys attacked me Apache style. I was in a pitched battle, but I was holding my own against an overwhelming enemy force. See, at the time, I was still pretty green, but often blunder into regrettable situations. But I just kept shooting at anything I could see up at those damn rocks. I didn't see Ringo, but I knew he was with the cowboys. He and Roscoe Bob had done me a dreadful wrong, and I was determined to have my revenge. But to get to Ringo, I knew I'd have to fight my way past these other assholes first.
Very quick.
Unfortunately, I was running out of ammo. Another perfect example of my relative inexperience as a hunter of men. I immediately knew that a tactical retreat was called for, as my vengeful fury was much less impressive without the bullets to back it up. Finally, they managed to corner me. Trapped as I was, the odds of my survival seemed pretty slim. Luckily, serendipity was on my side as I suddenly spotted a way out of my predicament. I ran ahead as if the devil himself was after me. Bullets were whizzing by my ears, but I wasn't about to roll over and die. I just kept running like there was no tomorrow. Because there wouldn't be if Clanton and his men caught up with me. As I was scurrying around those caves, I thought, what was I thinking? Going up against a gang like this? And that's when something miraculous happened. Like manna from heaven. I found the desiccated remains of what looked like an Apache warrior. The old weapon next to him supplied me with some much-needed ammunition. Pat Masterson once told me it was more important to be lucky than good. He would know. And imagine my surprise when I found a fistful of dynamite to go along with that ammo. That stroke of good fortune evened the odds and bolstered my confidence. It was time to turn the tables. Time for the prey to become the predator. Time for the hunted to become the hunter. Time. Oh,
All right, Jesus, we get it. They were right where you wanted them.
That's right, Jack. It was finally time for that old man to pay for his sins.
Yeah. Woo. And the dynamite. Woo. Oh.
I yelled out at the top of my lungs, "Clanton, I'm coming for you!" A little stealth might have made more sense, to be perfectly honest. Because that old fool had a Gatling gun and enough bullets to last him till kingdom come. But I knew I could not let that deter me.
Wasn't bad. One cycle.
Not if I was to... Most everyone thought it was the Ruales who had come up against him in Guadalupe Canyon. But it was just me.
Oh, come on.
Apparently,
That
one of the
took like
cowboys
12
made it
more
out of there
shots than
alive
he did too.
and told Ike and Billy Clanton that it wasn't a Mexican who took their father's life that day. They just assumed it was one of the Earps. And that little misunderstanding eventually led to that legendary gunfight at the OK Corral.
Okay. I haven't lost time. But in my D-Rust, it was literally, it was like individual level.
A few weeks after that dust-up at the OK Corral, I was still after Johnny Ringo. I had tracked him and the cowboys to their hideout at a sawmill. But first I need to tell you about the cowboys' new boss, Curly Bill Brocious.
Herb's coming!
Get ready, boys.
Okay, good. That means I didn't have to drop it off here.
There were killers around every corner, all wearing red bandanas. That's how the cowboys identified each other. And I was beginning to wish I had one myself. But I wasn't about to let Ringo walk away unscathed. And that's what... Now, where was I?
Taking down the entire cowboy gang single-handed.
Indeed I was, Jack. There were carts everywhere, piles of lumber, and God knows what else for people to hide behind.
And where was Curly Bill? Did you see him?
I'm painting a picture here. There was this beautiful waterfall and a crystal clear stream that led to a verdant valley that was truly...
Consider your picture painted. What happened next?
Well, finally the bastards that were still alive made a last stand.
Okay. Hopefully
Curly Bill,
will.
Johnny Ringo, and his compadres took off into the lumber yard, and I followed after.
Great. Hopefully he won't run away too far. He will run away somewhere close.
Are you saying they ran? Cowardice was not in Ringo nor Curly Bill's nature.
Brocious gave me no choice but to take his life. But Ringo was nowhere to be found.
I knew you didn't kill Ringo, because he was found dead in a different location altogether.
To this day, his killer is still unknown.
Indeed. Took me a few months before I finally tracked his ass to West Turkey Creek Canyon.
That's incredible, sir. I always thought that Doc Holliday was the one that killed him.
Oh, my focus.
Sorry I had to ruin the legend for you, boy. But the legend ain't always true. I was paid a healthy bounty for Ringo.
Okay, we did good. So long as Henry Plummer doesn't end up the way it did in my fine.
I knew I needed resources if I was going to track down Roscoe Bob Bryant.
Oh,
And hunting
God.
Plummer looked like a good way to get rich quick. As the local vigilantes exposed him as the leader of the bandits and put a generous price on his head.
Nervous standing so close to all these goddamn barrels of gunpowder.
Doesn't mean I get quicker.
I knew that dynamite wasn't mine, so I decided the polite thing would be to return it. It was the biggest gold rush since Sutter's Mill in '48. Unfortunately, prospectors weren't the only ones drawn to those riches. Of course, the rest were veterans of the Civil War. Stone-cold killers trained on the bloody fields of Shiloh and Antietam. Plummer had a lot of men on his payroll. A hell of a lot. I thought I was some kind of hero. I finally made it past and headed on to meet my destiny. But first, I had something I needed to figure out. I had a few ideas on how to get into that mine. But once I made my decision, I knew there was no turning back. So my first thought was to enter the nearest mine portal. I saw an entrance. Made sense. It was the quickest way in, but that also made it more dangerous. Besides,
This is what
once you enter a mine like that, it's easy to get all turned around.
things die if they're close enough.
Some of those shafts could be as deep as hell. Quick reflexes often make up for a lack of common sense. Luckily, I was never one to be easily bushwhacked. I would just need to be careful not to blow myself to kingdom come. One wrong bullet could have turned that mine into a dad-blasted tube. I freely admit that my plan of attack was not just moronic, but clearly insane. It's a good thing that I abandoned that ridiculous plan before I even tried it. Instead, I spotted a ladder, a way into the mine from the opposite side. It was a long way around, but that...
Got it.
I was determined not to give up, however. As Sheriff Plummer seemed quite the despicable character.
There isn't one. Great.
When the vigilantes discovered what the sheriff was up to, people were outraged. That 10,000 they put on his head would go a long way to helping me find old Bob. And I had made it my mission to settle that score come hell or high water. But first, I would have to make a choice. I wanted to use the element of surprise. Plus, I figured I could use the exercise. I was warmed up already, so what the hell? Plummer was a mad dog killer, and the people of Nevada City deserved better.
Nevada City? Well, I thought Plummer met his maker in Bannock, Montana.
Right, well, he was the sheriff of both places at one time or another, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
The point was, taking him down would save a lot of lives, including my own.
This could be a unique night with these.
Henry Plummer was clearly unhinged, and I could see right away that this was going to take some doing. I need some help here! Come on, boys! Take this cocksucker out! This cocksucker is smarter than he looks! Run!
Okay.
So that's how Henry Plummer died. Him and his crew were worth their weight in gold.
Bad.
And now, I was...
So, did you finally go after that Bob feller?
This still stop a lot.
I dodged death many a time, and that night in Abilene was no good.
Pretty sure I don't pause.
I thought the Texas Rangers got heart.
Yeah,
Dialogue skips. For real.
to the very same saloon we're sitting in today. Look around and imagine this place painted in blood.
Yes.
Hardin was waiting for me, and... Wait, I'm jumping the gun here. Let me back up and give you some background on this sumbitch. He deserves that much. Don't you think so, Ben? John Wesley Hardin was a killer.
That's an ammo.
By the end, he confessed to taking the lives of 42 men. He was a bona fide folk hero by then, and had amassed a gang of armed miscreants and other assorted thugs. He and his men set up camp outside of town, and I was hoping Bob was among them. I had to spill a lot of blood to find out Hardin wasn't in that camp. He was carousing in town with his closest friends. Hardin's boys apparently didn't want me to reach the Bull's Head. Some were hightailing it into town to inform their jefe of my unwelcome presence. I wondered if Bob was among them. Suffice it to say, nobody there was happy to see me. In fact, I felt a certain hostility. I was disappointed that neither Bob nor John Wesley were among the dead.
It wasn't.
But that was short-lived. As a moment later, I was facing down the fastest gun in the West.
Anyway. I got this shot in 3 shots.
I felt a bolt of adrenaline. Or maybe that was fear. He was well known for his tricks, and I knew I'd need my own if I was ever to defeat him.
This game's version of John Wesley Hardin looks a lot like Val Kilmer. Doomsday when he plays Doc Holliday.
That man was faster than greased lightning. But being inebriated as he was, he didn't count his shots. And now, he was at my mercy.
So he didn't die?
No, I sent him to prison. Years later, after he was free, some restless avenger took his life. Shot him in the back in a saloon.
Blind.
Thank you,
Oh,
darling.
that was quicker. Oh, darn it.
A bounty was put on Grey Wolf's head, and that's how I came to hunt him in the mountains. Mountains so high they tickled the nether regions of heaven. Grey Wolf was a Chiricahua Apache medicine man who had led a war party in revenge for a massacre against his people. The U.S. Army had attacked his tribe during his daughter's sacred sunrise ceremony, and the slaughter was unspeakable. Right from the beginning, I couldn't shake the feeling that Grey Wolf was watching my every move. He led a band of young Apache warriors who wanted retribution and were more than willing to die for him. They saw me before I saw them. And it crossed my mind that maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But now that the shooting had started, there was no backing down.
Oh my god.
Did you find Grey Wolf?
Not at that moment, but I did find the entrance to their hideout. A deep crevice that led to a deeper cave.
Don't tell me you went in there.
Yeah, but it's not out of bravery so much as pure, angry cussing. See, back then, I had a stubborn streak a mile wide, and I wasn't about to back down.
So it was like pitch black in there?
Actually, it was pretty well lit, as they had torches on the wall.
How big was his cave?
Big as hell, man. Chiricahua had hid out there during the Indian Wars. They thought it was haunted with the ghosts of those murdered by the horse soldiers.
The cave was haunted with dead Indian ghosts?
To be honest, I was more concerned with the live ones than the dead ones.
How come you know so much about engines?
Yes, the strats. The no slow motion strats.
I came upon this flooded grotto, and that's when I saw him. He came to me unarmed and unafraid. His voice echoed in the shadows, and I sensed he meant me no harm.
You carry great darkness in your heart, and if you do not release it, it will claim your soul.
The sound of his voice put some kind of ancient Indian spell on me. As his story unfolded in my mind.
You will come to this place again and kill many more men, and the darkness will grow until it consumes everything that you are. The soul would have no rainbow if the eye had no tears.
He said I was a great warrior, a coyote man, unequaled by any other pale-faced warrior, or something like that.
The snakes will bite shadows of your past until a venom poisons your heart, and an echo of the song of the dead summons the spirits deep from within the mountains.
I didn't quite get what he was saying, but there was definitely snakes.
These.
And indeed, his warriors surrounded me and attacked me like hungry wolverines. They couldn't stop me, though, and Grey Wolf wasn't in the mood for idle talk. I swear I couldn't see any way out of this trap. But suddenly, one just appeared. Kind of like a miracle. I felt like I would be lost in that damn cave forever. Finally, I found myself back outside, perched on the edge of a precipice, overlooking a thundering whitewater river. To get where I was going required several leaps of faith, but no way in hell I was turning back. I chased after him, determined to make him explain the meaning of all that mumbo-jumbo.
Mumbo-jumbo's right. Are you making this all up as you go?
A few details may be fuzzy, brother, but I am relating exactly what happened. There were dozens of Apache warriors aiming at me from on high.
Dozens?
Get away with it.
Well, maybe not dozens, but there was a lot of them.
At least 3 or 4.
Well, more than that, little lady. I had a steep climb up creek ahead of me and scrambled up those rocks like a mountain goat. I was determined to locate Grey Wolf and find out exactly what the hell he was trying to tell me. And wouldn't you know it, that crafty son of a bitch led me right into a trap.
What kind of trap?
Well, son, there had to be at least
Blood
100
Thunder Wolf is
Apaches
this
surrounding me.
at any point.
100?
The reason I look
God
this
be
way
my
is
witness.
that there's a spawn point there and
Come
a
on,
spawn
who
point
you
there.
kidding?
And
I believe
for the
you.
most part,
Come on,
the
tell us how it
Apaches
ended.
won't
All right,
spawn
but I'm not gonna
if you're
drag this
looking at
out.
the two
Where
other
were we?
spawn points.
You were surrounded by 100
They'll spawn
Apache
at the one
warriors.
behind you.
Well, I didn't take the time to count them exactly, but there were a lot of them.
Up from that one. Open up.
And in the end, a path appeared before me that I had not seen before.
A very quick
I
fire.
followed it as I desperately needed to find out what Grey Wolf was trying to tell me.
And then I lose time on a rock, which
But it was like that son of a bitch disappeared into thin air. Thank you, darling. It's in.
I can't remember where I lost all my time now. Oh.
It was early morning. One of my friends was a local gunsmith, and he handed out firearms to anybody who'd take one. You see, the Daltons got it in their heads to rob 2 banks at the same time. 2 banks on the same damn street. The brothers paid dearly for their stupidity, but everybody knows they had it coming.
There's more to it than that. I read all about that day, so I know for a fact that it went down very differently. First of all, it was high noon. A posse of U.S. deputy marshals were on the rooftop across the street.
Get ready, boys. They're gonna make a move.
The lawmen had been tracking the Daltons for months. Now they finally had them dead to rights. Among them was a bounty hunter feared by many a lawbreaker. The marshals tried to get the Daltons to surrender. This bounty hunter knew that the brothers were far too proud to ever lay down their guns.
Sloppy. God. Be able to get them all as they're coming out the door.
He went in there alone to confront those criminals. One of the marshals shouted, "Where are you going? Are you crazy?"
As in, not outside
He saw a way
the
to get
bank,
around to the
in-
back
in
of the bank.
doorway.
Then he figured out how to
Because
hit the
they're wide
Daltons from a
enough that they
direction
fill
they
up the
weren't
entire
expecting.
doorway.
A moment later, he was climbing up a steep ladder, laughing at danger as he did. It was brave men like him who risked their lives to tame this wild country.
Is that Silas Greaves?
Heroic men like him, who did what other men couldn't or wouldn't to make this country free.
Very retarded.
Jim Boone, Davy Crockett, who died defending the Alamo.
Over there!
You can't help that. If that guy turns up in that
Over there!
scene, that's basically it. He will get killed. Because it's considered as you've dodged a bullet,
Came away victorious,
and then he just
taking
shoots
down
you,
those thieving
which
Daltons.
takes away your sense of death. And
His name was Silas Greaves. And when the dust finally
your
settled,
perfectly
He
able
was
to be
the
killed.
last man standing.
Sorry, kid, but that just wasn't the way it happened. It was early evening, not high noon. The Daltons blew up a safe, and were all set to hightail it out of there. Those pathetic deputies surrounding the bank were dropping like flies. I had been tracking those jokers for months, waiting for them to do something reckless. And finally, they did. Those stupid bastards decided to rob 2 banks at the same time in the same town where everybody knew them. They still had friends in Coffeeville. And those friends came after me like a pack of wild dogs, tooth and nail. They were coming at me from all directions. I caught sight of the Daltons running with the money, didn't want to lose them. Problem was, they knew the town better than I did. And to top it off, I found myself in the middle of another shootout entirely.
Did the Daltons hole up in somebody's house?
No, it was the Smiths, I believe. They were cousins of the Daltons. And they were shooting at the Browns, who were shooting at the Daltons. Which wasn't any surprise, because those 2 families have been feuding forever. The Dalton boys knew I would never give up.
Half health. Now I can actually kill him.
But Emmett Dalton survived the robbery in Coffeeville. He's the only Dalton who did.
They say he was shot 23 times.
Well, Dwight, who do you think put all those damn holes in him? But...
Always go better.
It took me a couple of days to track the Daltons down.
They can't get away with this!
And in that time, a whole posse of local vigilantes offered to lend a hand.
I find it gets it easy because he likes.
They seemed as determined as me to find those outlaws.
And he doesn't.
But as we headed into those swamps, it was like I had my own private army. There was no way those boys were getting away this time.
It was early fall, right? Beautiful time of year. At least you had the weather on your side.
Not by my recollection.
Yes, got it.
It was damp and foggy as hell. It was tough to stay on a true course. So we kept an eye out for landmarks. It was autumn. The maple trees were in full color. Red as blood. Except for some bitches ahead of me wanted to do me harm. So I had to face them alone. I wondered why my compatriots didn't come running when they heard the shots.
So did you find the Daltons?
Not yet. But I did have the questionable pleasure of meeting a few of their friends. The boys had established quite a reputation by that time, so they attracted all manner of riffraff to their cause. Point being, I was under serious attack. But luckily, our barn materialized as if right before my eyes. I scrambled up top to get a better view,
That was lucky.
just ended up falling inside.
If you're shot at all when you go up there,
The barn doors was open.
the fall is
About right then, I
actually
saw some
quite big.
suspicious characters running for the bushes. Of course, I followed them.
But sometimes
That
you get
goddamn
lucky,
swamp was like a
this.
goddamn maze, and pretty soon I had no goddamn idea where I was. Steve? Steve?
Huh? Oh, no, I'm listening.
Indians surrounded me from all sides.
That's good. Full.
Indians?
There were Indians.
No. I just wanted to make sure
Concentration
Steve
bar.
was paying attention. Now, where was I?
You were following the Daltons through a swamp?
That's right. See, Steve? Dwight's paying attention.
Oh, I'm listening. I was just resting my eyes.
So did you ever find the damn Daltons?
Not
I
yet,
need a full bar.
but I did find a few of their cousins. You can't breed like rabbits. Or Smiths or Heimhoffers or who knows what. I knew those Dalton boys were out there somewhere, standing together against anyone who would threaten them. And that's when I saw
You
it.
more
A goddamn steamboat.
A steamboat
use,
in a swamp?
Yeah, Steve, but this wasn't much more than a wreck, really.
But how'd a damn steamboat end up in the swamps?
Guess it floated off during the flood of '89.
Now, was it a stern wheeler or a side wheeler?
What? Does that really make a difference, Steve? It was a steamboat with a goddamn army on board. It was then that a fusillade of bullets come raining down from on high, and those vigilantes who accompanied me weren't anywhere to be found.
Can't believe I died.
But among those men that were shooting me, I thought I saw some familiar faces.
Point? Why didn't I have a sense of death?
Somewhere up there, the Daltons were waiting on me.
Sounds like you don't give up too easy.
That's the kind of man I am, Ben. I set out to do something. I do it. Surrender just ain't in my nature. Plus, I'm stubborn as hell. Right about then, much to my relief, the vigilantes finally arrived. Their leader motioned at a cabin in the middle of the top deck, pointing me directly at the Daltons. I finally had them, after months of dogged pursuit. But it turned out that they had me.
Take him out! I'm sending you to
If you get there too quick, you press Q. The door doesn't open. It activates your concentration.
Daltons had played me
If you
like
press
a
Q
fiddle.
again when you kick down the
Apparently,
door,
the vigilantes were on their damn payroll.
you kick down the door
They
in
didn't
slow
just wanna
motion,
shoot
so you
me.
waste
They
time.
wanted to burn me
But
alive.
the slow motion doesn't
Finding my way
activate
out of a
until you
burning
kick the door.
labyrinth proved to be quite a challenge.
It was a riverboat, right? I mean, it's not like it was a goddamn ocean liner.
Figure that out.
Yeah, but I was in a fight.
Hear about that ship that's gonna launch next year? Largest one in the world.
You're talking about the Titanic.
It's like, oh, you want to go into concentration, right?
I don't think
Okay, but we're going to wait
So
until we've
anyway,
done this
Don't be
other action
stupid,
before we
Steve.
activate.
They know what they're doing. They say that the Titanic is unsinkable.
Oh, God.
But getting back to that steamboat, how did you get off it, Mr. Breeze?
I took in a lot of smoke that day, so I admit my recollection might be a bit hazy. But somehow I managed to finally get some bark. It was time to settle this once and for all. Bob and Grat weren't about to come at me one at a time. They were in this together.
Slow motion's fine as long as
Two
you're not
brothers
moving.
side by side,
By the way.
determined to take me down. Confident that this time the odds were on their side.
I mean, it is quicker, like, once, while you're waiting for people to spawn to be normal mode, but once everyone has spawned, we go into
They got it wrong.
because
Sad
everyone's in
end for
place,
those two.
just kill them.
If they'd only known that Emmett was still alive despite his wounds. Paroled 14 years later, he moved to California and sold real.
My biggest time loss. So far.
I'd been on their
It's been
trail
the
for
second
months,
mission,
ever
where I
since they
didn't
left their hideout in the
do
Bighorn Mountains.
the checkpoint reload.
Led by Butch Cassidy,
And Old
they
Man
were a
Clanton,
loose association of outlaws who robbed banks
I
and
had a
trains
bad
from Colorado to Montana. Among them was the Sundance Kid, and that
Or this
murderous
wasn't
hombre
getting
I
damaged,
was
might have been
tracking,
behind the
Roscoe
gun,
Bob
perfect
Bryant.
position.
They blew the bridge with
I
the
think he
intention
can
of forcing
either
the
be
train
stood
to
up or
stop.
ducked down behind the gun.
I was
Ducked
determined to
down.
make that sumbitch Bob pay for what he did to my brothers.
Sometimes I stood up kind of like, oh, where are you? Or
My ears
Or
are
to
still
make out
ringing
he
from blowing up that bridge.
Well, I made my way off unscathed and came upon a few members of the gang and had no choice but to dispatch them. From there, I had to negotiate an even more precarious route. I jumped from the frying pan into the fire as the train was clearly fixing to fall. I had found the gang, but in order to find old Bob, I needed to fight my way forward past a whole passel of desperados. As I mentioned before, I am not fond of heights, but I was too busy.
dialogue skip.
At times, it was like shooting ducks in a shooting gallery. The only difference is these damn ducks shot back.
3 points.
I
if
kept
you want
hoping the
them in that.
law would show up and give me a
You
hand.
mean like that giant Pinkerton posse that I read
Train
about?
truck, but
Did they come riding in,
don't need
guns
points,
a-blazing to help?
don't bother shooting the barrels. Go around. Slightly quicker. You get the jump onto the like platform mark.
Help? From the Pinkertons? No, son. I had to fight the Wild Bunch all by my lonesome, as usual.
Who the hell is that? He's out of here!
My guess is those dime novels didn't portray this as it happened, did they? Only a few stragglers were left, and I had to cut them down pronto if I was going to stay on old Bob's trail.
I was looking over it to see.
Once I
I'm
silenced
pretty
all
sure.
those guns,
I mean,
I
the
went
right-hand
searching for my
side probably
nemesis,
could be done
determined to
quicker
finally have
using
my
dual
justice.
pistols
But the
and
only
slow-mo,
survivor who welcomed
because
me was
everyone's already
George
visible,
Flat-Nosed Curry.
Who
and
is
like
he?
they don't have to move into place.
The
But
fastest
the
gun in the
left-hand
gang.
side, everyone
after Sundance,
starts
I
out
mean.
behind a rock, and you have to wait for
And
them
Kid
to
Curry,
be
and
visible
maybe
before
Elsie
you can
Lay.
shoot them. Which is why
Though some folks might
I'm under
dispute
the
that.
suspicion that it's quicker just to use chain gun completely, because you don't have to get off it.
On that very same day, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid decided to leave the Wild Bunch behind and decamped for South America.
Woo! I don't know. Oh, this mission.
I tried to find Bob Bryant, but it was as if he'd disappeared. Sometime later, I heard the Wild Bunch was back together. Kid Curry escaped from jail, and now he was running the whole
was not
shebang.
the quickest route
So I
through
took
those
to their
trees.
trail. because I was still in pursuit of my brother's killer and hoped that he was back with him.
That kid Curry's kind of crazy.
Anyways, I tracked those boys to a camp right outside Parachute, Colorado. Being outnumbered, I didn't bother with a warning shot. I just started taking those bastards down. Old Bob wasn't among them, and neither was Kid Curry.
I didn't do it quick
close
enough.
by, however.
You do it quick enough.
Something nasty.
Quick enough.
I just
you don't
needed a
get
clue as to their whereabouts.
Dialogue saying I didn't bother with a warning
And I
shot.
found one. A map with their bold plan clearly marked. This time they were fixing to blow up a train trestle.
Big Curry wasn't
property of the Union Pacific. The plan clearly indicated how they were fixing to undermine several of the weakest wooden supports. Kid Curry was considered the wildest of the wild bunch. It was said that he fathered 85 bastard children, though some say it was only 5. Kid Curry had bragged to a whore how he was going to rob a train heading to the U.S. Mint. The bridge was rigged with dynamite, so I decided I'd best be careful confronting those bastards.
Okay.
A moment later, I saw a ladder that somehow had escaped my attention.
You kind of skip a trigger, which stops these guys from spawning.
Who the hell's that? Hey, you!
And they will either spawn when you walk through them, or
the wild bunch did not take
at all.
kindly to my presence and attempted to blow my head off. It appeared the kid had found a number of new recruits to bolster their ranks.
What happened next?
Well, having removed the first bundle of dynamite, I decided I might as well remove the other one. Once that was done, I figured I'd find my way from there.
So, what happened then?
I had to remove more of that damn dynamite.
It must have been terrifying trying to make your way across.
I was sweating a bit, but then I noticed a footbridge tied up on high, so I shot the rope.
Sometimes,
So that was all
if you're
the
going
dynamite?
too quick for the
Funny
game,
you should mention that, darling. As actually there was a fourth charge
the
impeding my
trap
progress.
door that opens up will actually push you backwards
Once I
instead of
removed it, my
forwards.
path was pretty
You'll
clear.
just fall right off the end.
So I proceeded onward. I realized that that way just wasn't going to work. I needed an alternate path forward. Luckily, I found a cave, and as I made my way back to the bridge, I saw something that concerned me. It was a long, burning fuse, and it was moving fast as hell. I had to catch it.
You can get a little trick jump
The
there.
burning fuse was so damn
Like,
quick.
game
I
will
had to
ram
run
you,
like the
boost
wind.
you upwards, and it
I almost
boosts
had
you
it.
up high enough.
No. Thought I was gonna have a
couldn't
coronary
get
when I
onto the
lost sight of
platform
those
without having
sparks.
to do the
My
climb
heart
animation.
was pounding like a sledgehammer.
Takes me
I
a
knew that
second.
failure meant
Not a big
boom.
deal.
Then, finally, at the last moment. Whew.
And it's pretty much
Of
luck
course, I
based,
was
like,
successful,
don't know
or
how to
clearly I
replicate
wouldn't
it.
be talking to you. Well, it was a touching reunion.
That skips dialogue.
But by this time, I was thoroughly exhausted and dragging my ass as I was not a young man anymore.
Well, let's take it. I'll do some fighting.
Kill that SOB! Make him bleed! Send him over here!
Finally, I found those boys. Or more precisely, they found me. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Kid Curry opened up on me with a goddamn Gatling gun. It was hidden in this tunnel and pretty well shielded.
Okay. You. If you don't get the cutscene in time, you can die there and go straight back to where the QuickTime WASD thing, which, you know, actually sucks.
Eventually, I brought that tunnel down.
I thought I was going to have to do 4
That's
because
when I
the
met
first one
Kid Curry himself.
did like
He had decided to
silly
stop
amount of damage.
pussyfooting around and deal with me
Really small.
personally.
Basically, you want to wait before splitting the dynamite so that all 3 bits split into the mouth of the tunnel and not outside of the tunnel.
As fast as he was,
Nearly got the quick shot.
I was just a bit
Well,
faster.
I say I nearly got the quick shot. I got the quick shot draw, but I didn't
And
get the
as he
quick
lay
shot.
wounded, I demanded
itself.
to know the whereabouts of Roscoe Bob Bryant. He shouted at me. Is that what this is about? Bob went with Butch and Sundance to South America. You ain't never finding him. Those were his last words.
I might get 125. If I get 125, I'm gonna fucking through the roof with happiness.
I confronted them as they were robbing a train. Bullets were flying at me from every which way. But I knew I'd have to fight my way forward if I was going to find this Jim.
Now wait a second. How'd they stop this train in the first place?
Well, the James boys were experts at this. They hopped a freight train, having heard there was a big payroll in the express safe. So, I hopped the same train.
You can shoot him before the thing happens. Oh god.
The James Younger gang was decimated after that little fiasco they had in Northfield, Minnesota. So Jesse needed more men and took on the killer I was after, along with a host of others. I was hoping to find my man and put a bullet in his head.
Kill the person before you get into the...
Climbing around that train, I must have swallowed 100 damn bugs before I reached that...
The James Younger gang.
Okay, the reason for loading the checkpoint there is the checkpoint ends when Dwight says, I think he's coming back, or
suddenly I have an urgent need to drain my one-eyed snake. Well, I had more than a few drinks.
If you have a lot of dialogue backed up, you're moving at half speed for twice as long.
Let me show you. Never heard so much malarkey in
basically
my life.
fucks up your chances of doing this level at anything close to
You don't think he's Silas Greaves?
I think he's just some old drunk looking for some free liquor.
I don't know, Jack. I think I believe him. You don't think he met Jesse James?
Boy, you gotta be kidding me. That story makes no sense at all.
Jack.
I mean, you gotta be 2 bricks short of a load to believe that cock and bull story.
I don't agree.
Jack, lay off the
But
bar.
you seriously think that tired old man went toe-to-toe with Jesse James?
Well, that's better. Did I mention that this Jim was married to the infamous Belle Starr? Of course, I didn't learn that until later. Anyway, I made my way forward the best I could. Around the sides, over the roof.
That bit can be
At some point, some bitch saw me and shouted out, "It's the damn Pinkertons!" It's the damn Pinkertons! Now, I never worked that like a cocksucker. But I guess they assumed I was one of his assassins. I came across a flat car piled high with logs and had to come up with a creative way to make my way forward.
Okay. Aphids is ever.
Right about then, I was attacked by some asshole on a Gatling gun.
Yeah, seems like you run into a lot of them.
Asshole?
Gatling guns.
Yes, I did. Now, I don't remember how I took it out. It was either a bullet or dynamite.
Where would you find dynamite?
Does it really matter, Jack? You're messing with the flow of the story here. I was looking for Jim and shooting any son of a bitch stupid enough to get in my way. And that included Jesse James himself. There sure were a lot of men determined to die that day. It was then that Jesse detached the express car from the rest of the damn train. I could see Jesse waiting for me, fixing to kill me so he could get away with all that money.
I stood in a burning.
You had a showdown with Jesse James?
Of course he didn't. Everybody knows that Jesse was killed by Bob Ford.
Yeah. Jesse went out like John Wesley Hardin. Coward shot him in the back of the head.
Guess it doesn't matter how far you run, does it, Ben? Your past always catches up with you.
Surely Ben would have figured out at that point.
Yeah, I didn't kill Jesse
Silas
James.
knew who he was.
Just wounded him bad enough to convince him to hang up his guns.
What about that Jim fella? What happened to him?
I figure he was up front with a gun to the engineer's head. That bastard slipped away again. I'll tell you how I got him.
Yeah, I expected to find there. Pretty sure my D-Rust had a very good Jesse.
After my showdown with Jesse, I continued to track his brother, Frank, and that son of a bitch, Jim. I followed those bastards into the high mountains as they were going to ground.
What mountains would that be?
Somewhere in the Ozarks, I believe. The perfect place to hide out from the authorities. In fact, before I could find them, some Indians who fled the res and were hiding out from the military found me first. They probably thought I was a cavalry scout and didn't want me telling the military where they were.
Indians?
Yeah, they could have been Cheyenne, but there was all sorts of renegades roaming the landscape back then. Hey, how about another whiskey, Ben? Nothing better to soothe the troubled soul. Now, where was I? Indians, right. I had more than my share of run-ins with the rednecks. Like that time. Did I tell you about Grey Wolf?
Yes, sir. You did.
Ah, of course I did. In fact, I can still remember that old medicine man's words to me.
Jesus Christ, we're back to that again.
You carry great darkness in your heart. It will claim your soul. You will come to this place again and kill many more men, and the darkness will grow until it consumes everything you are.
It was like the one part where it was just randomly decided no true reason. See? Fuck's sake.
Like that time, did I tell you about Grey Wolf?
Yes, sir. You did.
Ah, of course I did. In fact, I can still remember that old medicine man's words.
Jesus Christ, we're back to that again.
You carry great darkness in your heart. It will claim your soul. You will come to this place again kill many more men, and the darkness will grow until it consumes everything you are.
So, did you ever find him?
Who?
The man you are after.
Let me ask you something, Ben. You ever think about death?
Mr. Greaves, are you all right?
Ooh, death. Oh,
Kill people from a distance. Don't go in the middle.
Spare me over to another.
Hit stop.
What is this that I can't see with ice cold hands taking hold of me? Oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over till another year?
So, are you gonna answer the question?
What question is that?
Jim Reed. Did you ever find him?
Reed was indeed that son-bitch's surname. That's right, Ben. A despicable character. I remember him laughing like a hyena that cold morning they lynched me and my brothers. He was intent on avoiding my vengeance, but nothing was gonna stop me. Nothing. I finally did track those outlaws down. They had long rifles with scopes and were well positioned to pick off any poor soul who came anywhere close. I'm guessing Frank James believed I was responsible for the demise of his brother Jesse. I couldn't really disagree with the man, as I thought Jesse was dead then as well.
Okay, so if you
He
hug
backed
that
off
wall,
as I
you're
closed
pretty
in
much
on him,
okay going that
but
way.
he was still intent on
I
killing
didn't
me.
realise that.
And when I closed in on him again, he backed off again, looking for a better angle. Well, I can't fault Frank for wanting his revenge, as I was there for the same damn reason myself. At this point, I'm guessing you think Silas Greaves is a worse murderer than Jim Reed ever was.
No, sir.
A man who spent half his life killing somebody's brothers. It was a pitched battle that could have gone either way. Luckily, I had some dynamite in my possession.
Dynamite on your person.
A few sticks, just in case. It's always good to be prepared. I'm just laying out the facts as I remember them, Jack. That old shack? Well, it went tumbling right off that cliff.
With Frank James still in it?
Yes,
Boy
sir.
talking for a
But
minute.
Frank James is still alive, living in Missouri, showing folks around the family farm for 25 cents a tour.
I didn't say he died in the fall, now did I?
I'm done with this damnable outlaw life. Kill me, don't kill me, do what you will. At this point, I just don't give a shit.
I explained to Frank that I had nothing against him personally and that I was looking for someone else.
You want Reed? Have at him. I never did like that bastard. I am done here.
We parted in peace as Frank pointed out the path to my prey before making his way back down the hill. As I was determined not to let that murderer escape my revenge again.
So, what happened with Reed?
Well, I finally found the last of the gang hiding in a nearby cave. First, I had to dispatch the lookouts, but rather than wander in willy-nilly, I decided it would be better to smoke that sumbitch out. Hey, Reed! I shouted. No wonder you're so ornery. Can't be easy being married to Belle Starr. While you're off providing for the family, she's spreading her legs for every Tom, Dick, and Cole Younger. Not an attractive woman exactly, but very friendly. At least she was to me.
Son of a bitch!
It was then that the last bunch of bandits jumped out of hiding. Eventually, it was just me
really well,
and
actually.
Reed. I had waited a long time to face him down, so I could repay him for what he did to my brothers.
The thing about Jim Reed is, oh, bullet.
And repay him I did.
Well,
I don't.
I'm not gonna get 125. Bad. 126.
40 years I had waited to get my hands on the last of my brother's
It is
killers.
so much better in it.
Not even an army of demons could have stopped me now. Both Johnny Ringo and Jim Reed fell fairly quickly. But the last one, Roscoe Bob Bryant, that son of a bitch had managed to escape my vengeance time and time again. I couldn't even be certain I'd recognize him after all those years. By now, he had to be close to 70.
But for all you know, he could have been dead.
That thought had indeed crossed my mind, as did others. For instance, did my thirst for vengeance turn me into something worse than the man I was
Okay,
after?
that wasn't a mistake on my
By
part.
this
You
point
need
in
to
my
go into the
storied
barn
career, I had
to
killed
where the
more men
trapdoor
than
falls,
Bob
and then
Bryant
go
ever
back
did.
so that the checkpoint
Nothing
loads.
Could
Because
stop
for some
me
reason
from
you miss
taking
it the
his
first
life.
time around and you go too quick.
Been after that killer forever. From the time I rode with Billy the Kid. But that
And
chapter
then go
of my
back in
story
and
you
it'll cause
already
the
know.
dropping animation, otherwise it
Chapter
gets
of that
soft locked.
fairy tale, you mean?
Suddenly it was 1910. There I was, an old man roaming a ghost town dead almost 2 decades. But I wasn't about to call it quits. Even though the ghosts of my dead brothers were begging me to end what I started so long ago.
Mr. Graves, are you all right? Would you like some water?
The Wild Bunch knew I was there. They were after a treasure they had hidden before they fled, buried in the grave of a dead amigo. I intended to fill that grave with Bob Bryant's corpse. But like I said, the bandits knew I was onto them. They lured me in and hit me with everything they had.
This guy's a psycho!
And everyone's dead. And now I have to
But
wait.
you obviously prevailed since you're sitting here telling us the tale.
Actually, in that moment, I did not prevail.
So I suppose we're talking to a ghost.
Funny you should put it like that, Jack.
I could probably save time
Because
on
when I woke up,
this split because my
From the dead?
remembering of the ghostly
there was
bit
silence all
was
around me.
horrible.
I could swear to God
Like,
I
could
saw
remember
Billy then.
what direction they
Billy
came from.
who?
Billy, the kid. William Bonney. He was shooting at me from a rooftop.
But I think I remember.
Here, there, even over there.
So I am right. You are touched in the head.
Mr. Greaves, perhaps we should switch you to coffee?
You see that old Indian again, too?
No, but I did see Billy's killer, Patrick Floyd Garrett. He came at me guns a-blazing. But I knew that old war horse had died 2 years before. I wondered if maybe I was dead too and confronting the ghosts of my past. Perhaps all my sins were coming back to haunt me and drag me down to perdition. I saw Henry Plummer throw dynamite at me. And in the gates of the cemetery, I saw John Wesley Hart, just like I remembered him. Robert Ollinger appeared with his terrible double-barrel shotgun. But no ghost army was stopping me.
My father-in-law got hit with a fallen branch. He spent the rest of his life talking to dogs.
Newman Hayes Clanton, William Brocious, John Peters Ringo, they all wanted me dead. The Dalton brothers, Robert and Grattan, guardians of the Garden of the Dead. George Curry and Harvey Logan, alias Kid Curry, both thirsty for vengeance from the great beyond. Jesse, Woodson, James, and Jim Reed, each one deader than the next. I thought I would go crazy.
Thought?
Finally, I saw Harry Alonzo Longabaugh,
The Sundance Kid?
like a general leading his Legion of the Dead.
You told us before that you'd seen him alive.
He was alive. Then I heard a voice call to me from afar. It was Robert Leroy Parker, a.k.a. Butch Cassidy, coming at me from out of the fog.
Thanks for taking care of that bastard.
So it's going to be a late 25.
But the kid wasn't quite deceased. Not yet.
Takes more than one little bullet to kill the likes of me, partner.
Those two looked like they hadn't seen each other for quite a while. Clearly, they were no longer amigos.
Shit. I was hoping I wouldn't have to kill you. You won't have to, Butch. I'm killing you first.
I asked them about Bob Bryant, but they were too busy with their own heated conversation.
Let me get this shit straight. You want my money and the love of my life?
You frittered it all away, Butch. Edda's mine. So is that damn money.
I didn't want to shoot anybody until I had an answer to my question, but those boys didn't give me much of a choice. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid died there in that cemetery not 6 months ago.
Come on. Late 25.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were killed by the Bolivian army. Everybody knows that.
That's the legend, but it ain't the truth.
So, you never found Bob?
There is no Bob. This old sumbitch ain't even Silas Greaves.
Sir, is that true? Have you been pulling our legs this whole time?
Well, not the whole time.
Oh, man, I think you've worn out your welcome here.
It's
Maybe
25.
you're right, Jack. Maybe it's time to pay. You see,
25.
Ben, or should I say Bob, your past always catches up with you.
The cup.
I was a
Why
different
the
man back
innocent
then,
cullet?
crazy. Drinking,
Why?
I've changed my ways, I swear to you. If I could turn back the clock,
But you can't, Bob.
Why'd you toy with me like that? Telling those tales, knowing all
26,
along.
33.
Why not just lay your cards on the